Help you get your feet off the crumbling sand.
Who's that? Daniel Amos?
That would be Gentle Face.
Okay, let's go.
All right, well, welcome, guys. We just got that little song to start the podcast today.
Yeah, I think we should. That should be the intro. That'd be great. Steve is all into the Jesus Revolution,
the Jesus music of the Jesus movement, not Jesus Revolution.
No, the movie has prompted you.
Yes.
Can I be right one time?
Never.
Wouldn't it be okay? Just one time.
Every once in a while, I wish for that. I pray for that.
I'm begging
Could
you.
she just be right once?
I'm
Lord?
begging you.
Could she just be
So he's
right
all over, and he's
once?
we went away for a few nights with Mark's birthday, and he was singing all kinds of old songs from the 70s, second chapter of Acts.
Even went to a Chuck Girard concert that happened here.
And he's 80.
He's the leader of Love Song from the movie Revolution, the Jesus Revolution.
Oh, just what I just said.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, guys, let's dive into our scripture today. We're going to continue in Mark chapter 10. Last week we covered the story of the brothers asking Jesus for the
that was funny.
I
like that one. Yeah.
And him saying, I can't give you that, but unless you're willing to drink the cup, and all the discussion that came out of that, which was really, really good episode. If you haven't listened to it, then I recommend that you do.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny episode. Just the fact that these two guys would ask Jesus to sit at the right and left hand. I thought it was pretty bold, but you'll have to listen to the one before this.
Yeah. And in Mark's Gospel, this is the very next story we're going to get into. So he finishes by telling his disciples, if you want to be great in this kingdom, then you can become the servant of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. And then our next story, which we're looking at today, is then they came to Jericho. And as he was leaving Jericho with his disciples and the large crowd, a blind beggar named Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the road. When he heard it was Jesus the Nazarene, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many were sternly telling him to be quiet, but crying out all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus stopped and said, "Call him here." So they called the blind man, saying to him, "Take courage, stand up, he is calling for you." Throwing aside his cloak, he jumped up and came to Jesus. And answering him, Jesus said, "What do you want me to do for you?" And the blind man said to him, "Rabbi, I want to regain my sight." And Jesus said to him, "Go, your faith has made you well." Immediately he regained his sight and began following him on the road.
You want me to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, this is one of those stories that has a couple of things for long-term following Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It's points in your life when you're in worship or you're feeling far from God, or you just are desperate for something, and you come upon those. We around here have been desperate on several occasions, in recent years for, really needing Jesus to do something, and to come to our need. And it's like you cry out, "Son of David, have mercy on me. Son of David, don't pass me by. Have mercy on me." And there's these just, different points in your life where it's just so important to remember. This man is waiting for Jesus. He's absolutely desperate. I think of what he had to go through to get in his way, because he can't see. He doesn't know what's going on. He has to ask, where is this Jesus? And they tell him he's coming by here. He's on his way. But he's kind of like positioned himself in front of Jesus and still cries out. And even in the resistance of the people around him, be quiet,
Yeah. That's what caught me.
It's hard to believe anybody would stop a man from calling out, for help, who is blind. I imagine in their life, Bartimaeus is around all the time calling out for help. He's probably begging, he's probably needs help a lot. And
He's probably a
so
nuisance to them.
they are looking more to, put their best foot forward to Jesus, be like they have to do for the Pharisee or any priest or any holy man or any teacher. They got to treat him in a certain way. And so Jesus is coming, and they want to put our best foot forward, and we got the blind guy yelling out, and so I do want to give them some, area of their culture required this, but still he's a blind man crying out to David or to Jesus. And then it says, stop, just stop doing this. You're bothering us. They're trying to resist him. And he yells out even the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And I just, I think that's a stopping point where a man says that. The other stopping point for me is that in the resistance of others trying to stop the truth, in the resistance of others trying to tell you
Silence.
that in the name of God, stop, no, I can't. I must be about my Father's business. It's really Jesus says, I must be about my Father's business. Blind Bartimaeus says, I must be about this. I have to do this. I have one shot at this. I have one chance in life, and it's this guy. And I wish I could get more people to understand you have one shot at this, is to find Jesus. If you find religion, if you, I think it was Vicky used to say, if you're falling off a cliff and you're going to die, you fell off a building and you're falling, don't cry out to your mama because she can't save you. Don't say, Mama, splat. Say, Jesus. That's the only thing you can yell. Jesus, save me. And blind Bartimaeus is in that position where he is for the rest of his life going to have the same outcome over and over. The rest of every day is going to be Groundhog's Day. He's going to be repeating and rinse and repeat.
Because he's just waiting for someone to help him?
Because he just is blind in a world that doesn't have handicap standards.
No.
Doesn't have a, American Association for Handicapped People. It doesn't have that kind of stuff. And in the end, they say, hey, have courage. He's calling out to you. And there's this point where, Jesus is calling out to him. And the people say, take courage. He's calling for you. And then he jumps up and comes to Jesus and says, and here's the next point. Jesus is asking, what do you want me to do for you? What he says sometimes to people is, what do you want God to do for you? And in this case, he says, what do you want me to do for you? Because he's calling out to Jesus. And it's just, I love that. What do you want Jesus to do for you? When we come to the prayer lines at the front of the church, or we lay hands on people, anoint them with oil. What do you want Jesus to do for you? What is it you want? And, anybody on earth looks at a blind man crying out, Son of David, have mercy on me. You would think they would be saying, well, we know what he wants. Jesus. But no, Jesus makes him say it.
Wow.
State what you want, It's as obvious as, it could possibly be. But you got to say, what do you want Jesus to do for you today? And he says, I want to regain my sight. I want to see again. And of course, Jesus says, your faith has made you well.
It's interesting to me because the parallel between our lives is amazing. The desperation, lots of people find Jesus in desperation, right? The moment there's a sickness, or the moment the prison door closes, the moment there's an accident, it's like people cry out to Jesus. This guy was desperate, and like Steve said, every day he's out there, and he wants healing. He's heard of Jesus. He's heard what Jesus has done for others. I think it's pivotal is that we as Christians should be out there telling people what Jesus has done for us. But what is interesting says, Jesus says, go, your faith has made you well. Immediately he regained his sight and began following him on the road. And I remember when I asked Jesus into my life at 2:00 in the morning on May 2nd, 1979, immediately I had regained my sight. I was blind. I didn't understand anything to do with Christianity. I was totally blind, and I was desperate to find out whether or not he was real. And he came to me in that minute at 2:00 in the morning. In 30 seconds, I wasn't blind anymore, because it says there's a veil over our eyes and our heart. In fact, in Corinthians, I read today, is like, you don't get it. You don't get, we're blind. We have a veil over us. We don't understand. And when I asked Jesus into my life to take the blinders off, immediately I could see again. And the next part's so important. And immediately he began following him on the road. See, oftentimes the veil goes away and we don't follow him on the road. We follow our own road. We go separate ways. Well, and then we think that we're good. Yeah. That's all we need. It's one and done. My sins are forgiven, and now I can go my own way, do my own thing. Yeah. And I think for me, this is so significant, is that once you find the truth and the truth has set you free, you probably should follow the truth maker and what he says. So for me, this is real significant in my spiritual life of following Jesus. And oftentimes I want to go my own way. And I love that the Lord will just kind of convict me in a little still small voice and say, I don't think that's a good idea. But this is just the practical illustration of what happened to me so many years ago, that a veil came off my eyes and I could see everything. Pregnant ladies became very, very important to me because of the miracle of birth, and the trees were prettier, and people's lives mattered more because there's a veil that came off my eyes. And then I just wanted to follow him because he's the one that set me free.
I think the go your faith has made you well is so much more important than he gained his sight.
Yeah.
I think of Vicky's story about Vicky. I'm an eyewitness, Vicky was made well, and she wasn't blind physically, right?
Yeah.
This guy was blind physically, and we want to make a big deal about that. But far more important is the last phrase we read. Began following him on the road.
Yeah.
That is the most important words, right? And I think it's the most important part of he was made well, because he wasn't just healed of blindness. He was in relationship with God's Son. He was in relationship with the Lamb of God. And I think the most important thing happened here is not that a man was healed of blindness, is that a man came into relationship with God. The purpose of Jesus' journey, the purpose of his birth, the purpose of his journey, the purpose of his cross, resurrection, even his ascension, and all the teaching in between. The purpose was not so you could go to heaven. It wasn't so that you could one day reach the kingdom of heaven. It was so that you could have the kingdom of heaven now. Mm-hmm. And the definition of being made well is kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And that's the definition we're looking at here. That's what they're saying. When Jesus says to the 10 lepers, where are the other 9? Your faith has made you well. Well, they were all healed, but only one was made well. One was allowed to know the King of Heaven right now. Blind Bartimaeus got to see him, but then he began to follow him. The rich young ruler, you still lack one thing. Come follow me. How do I inherit eternal life? Give your money away. And then maybe you've obeyed the commandments. But to have eternal life, you need to follow me, because you haven't given all your money away. So you need to follow me. And in blind Bartimaeus, when he regained his sight, he began following him on the road.
That's good. And
that's the key to your life being made well. And then the know if your life's been made well or not is, do you have the kingdom of heaven in your life? Does your joy and your happiness depend on circumstances? I can tell you that a man, once Bartimaeus, who's no longer blind, began following Jesus, he began to learn more. He knew nothing there. His whole life was trying to navigate a world blind. After his sight is given to him, now he's responsible, has to follow, and he follows Jesus. Well, I got to tell you, following Jesus, he began to understand the kingdom of heaven. He began to experience it. He began to follow it. And if he was anything like most people, he fell in love with Jesus. Not just because his eyes were given to him, but because the kingdom of heaven became his. Jesus said, I come to show you the Father. He probably began to see the Father. I only do what the Father tells me to do. I only say what the Father tells me to say. He began to hear the Father of heaven and see the Father of heaven while here on earth.
Good.
And he began to live a life of being made well. Is your life made well? Well, in my opinion, your life is made well when circumstances don't continue to control your ups and downs. In our life, I was moving along, but I was stuck. And how does God help a man like Steve Orsillo become the man I am today? How does God get me here to be someone I would really like? And if I met me, and I would really like to know a man like me. When I was 18, I wish I had met a man like me. And I think I'm a man that 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds and 50-year-olds and everybody could really learn from. And how did I get here? Well, I'm going to tell you, it wasn't by paving a road of gold underneath my feet. It wasn't by putting handwriting on the wall to tell me which way to go. It wasn't by having heavenly arrows and angels waving, saying, no, go this way, pointing the way. It wasn't me seeing the kingdom all the time. It was me living the kingdom, but it wasn't me seeing it all the time. No, how God got us where we are is he gave a young man Down syndrome, and he became our son. And that child was born to us. And through the raising of that child and through the tenderness it took to bend your knee and help him through life, we became the people we are. And it's not what we would have chosen. Blind Bartimaeus was healed. We received a child that wasn't what we would have chosen. But then once we received it as a gift from God, and we were made well. Our wellness has more greatly come from those circumstances. But then you ask anybody, after hearing Steve say this, do you want your children to be born with Down syndrome? Would you want one? And not very many would say yes. You wouldn't want your child to do that. There's a lot to it. And yet, the value, the richness, the greatness in our life because of it is that we are who we are. This is the journey of us having regained our sight, spiritual eyes, and then began following him on that road. And in that road was this child, and that man turned 40 tomorrow. And he is still the thing that keeps us who we are. And each time we start to drift, it's God gave us this gift, and God gave him the sight as a gift, and he gave us many things as a gift. But what keeps us walking in the kingdom and really believing that what he set out to do on the cross was make our kingdom here, bring the kingdom here, not just so we could get to the kingdom, but bring the kingdom here so that we could follow him here and know him here and talk to him here and hear his voice here and worship him here and obey him here. And that all happened because of his cross. But the journey has many things. We have so many. Our house burned down, our business went bankrupt, just so many things.
Funny because we were just talking about it yesterday,
Yeah.
and the amount of things that have happened to us, and in the natural, it'd been really difficult if Jesus hadn't made us well. Yeah. Anyone would have probably crushed us, but because we followed Jesus on the road after once being blind, now we see they didn't, and then we can look back and say, honestly, they've made our life, and we see Jesus' hand. And because we're not blind anymore. But, would we want to wish that on anybody? Like he said, absolutely not. In hindsight, do we want to go through that again? Absolutely not. But we were just talking about this yesterday when we were away. It's like these things, but we're happy.
Wouldn't trade one thing.
And we're happy. That's what we're talking about, is that in the midst of, if our life, people joke, and somebody said to me recently, what's going up in Orville and with you guys? Because in the natural, it looks like we're kind of cursed, and Moses, right? And but the knowledge of the fact that we are happy in a content way does not depend on people or things or circumstances or events. We're happy because years ago we were blind, and when he healed our blindness, we decided to follow Jesus. And for Steve, it's 48 years. And for me, it's coming on 45, I believe, 44. And it's just, he's been so good to us. And we cried out, Son of David, have mercy on us. That's the only thing I did right, was cried out, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Steve's right. The best part of the story is that when he saw, he followed. And I would actually like to see the rest of his story. Like, where did he go?
Where'd he go?
Did he follow Jesus all the days of his life? Did he follow him to the cross? Was he in the crowd? You think he would.
I mean, the next story is in Mark's account, is at least the triumphal entry. So he's right.
The what?
The triumphal entry when he goes into Jerusalem. So
Oh,
we're right.
He's
there on
probably
that,
with him.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that'd be
And the
good.
cross is like right after that.
Yeah.
So he's probably there, but it would just be kind of interesting. What happened to blind, blind Bartimaeus? And that's a fascinating story.
I think the best way to see if your life has been made well, like he says, your faith has made you well. The leper, your faith has made you well.
9 were healed.
Yeah. And 10 were healed, 9 didn't come back. His guy came back, worshipped him as God. You've been made well. I think that the main fruit of that is that you have the fruit of the Holy Spirit in you. And that's that joy unspeakable, full of glory, that peace that passes understanding, those things that, that wisdom of God that you don't know where it came from, but you have it. It's that, that voice, that still small voice that says, not this way, walk this way, go here, go there. And just the miracle of it all, that fruit of the Spirit that's in your life, that in tune with his voice. And I think that's the best sign that your life is being made well, that you are selfless, that you give your life away, lay down your life for the cross. And these are the signs that you're made well. And they're also the things nobody would want. Like I talked about Down syndrome, no one's voting to have a Downs baby. But I'm telling you, it is the richest thing that's ever happened to us. And then nobody's voting to be the slave of anyone or the servant of all. And yet that's what brings about the fruit of the Spirit, to be the servant of all. Jesus said anyone who would be great must be the servant of all. And the greatest among you will be the servant of you. And if you don't, you have to wash each other's feet and serve each other to be great. Well, nobody's choosing that to be great. And it's the sign that you're choosing it to be obedient. You're choosing it to love God back for what he's done for you. And then you are made well. And the wellness is that things like fire, leukemia, cancer, and all the other things, my mom's Alzheimer's, her mom's Parkinson's, those things don't rob us of our faith.
Or joy.
They hurt to watch our loved one. We have the same hurt, but at the end of the hurt, there's still this deep joy. And there's almost always a wonderful testimony of God's grace moving in those things that are horrible. You look in the fire and there's God's grace.
That's good. So would you say that the only time, like he was blind in the story, obviously physically.
Sure.
And then he's crying out for Jesus, and Jesus responds, and he gets his sight back and he starts to follow him. Would you say that, although there is the one experience where we come to see him for the first time,
right?
Would you say there are other times in our faith journey where maybe we feel blind and like we cannot see him? Mm-hmm. And is there anything we can learn from this? I think you started to say at the start, like we can follow some of these same principles in those moments in our lives where we feel blind or overwhelmed, where the kind of like the crying out to Jesus and the not being silent and those kind of things. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I know in my life, there's many points in my life where I yelled, Son of David, don't pass me by. Have mercy on me. Don't pass me by. And I, just generally it's the other people exercising their free will to make bad decisions that destroy their lives. And then destroy their loved ones' lives, their wives, husbands, children's, grandchildren's. And, when you do this, it's going to affect your wife and your children. Don't do this. It's going to affect them negatively, and they do it anyway. I think that's when you feel the most despair in Christian ministry, at least, is when people that you've laid your life down for make choices to destroy themselves. Now, Jesus is seeing this on a huge level. On a planetary level, all over people, he did so much for choosing to destroy the very life that he died to save. And that's probably what we struggle with the most in this, and would be in despair over, to where we would call out Son of David, have mercy on us. I feel so deep. I feel like I'm in a dark hole in despair over this person's life, over this person's choices, over this person's decisions. And for the little children that they have that they just started to believe they got their parent back, and you just went off the rails and abandoned them again. You got their hopes up and squashed them again. And and that's when you're crying out, oh, Lord, come, do something, Lord, do something, rescue these children. And, he's not going to take away that person's free will.
Right.
And those children are going to face this. And it's like, this isn't the last unfair circumstance of your life, and you're going to have to find Jesus. And if you find Jesus, then even that kind of failure, even that kind of abandonment, even that kind of disappointment, he can be with you. It says, be encouraged, he's calling for you. He's calling for you. Be encouraged. He's heard you. That's just that's another one of those. Like I said, there's 3 or 4 points in this where you go, oh, that's good. Oh, that one's good too. Oh, that was, and
Oh, that's good.
hey, he hears you. He's heard you. Oh, I'm glad now it's in his hands. He's got it. He's aware of the situation, even though we know he was aware of it already. There's this feeling of, hey, he's aware of the situation now. And if he's aware of it, then the promise of all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. That's on the table now. Now we've got that's in action. That's got its motor running. It's moving forward. The wheels are turning on it. We're going forward with that one. And we're believing in it. We're standing on it. We're riding it, however you want to put it. We are walking in this truth that God's got this, because we know, hey, I left it with you. And I just think that there's so many of those kinds of conditions, the vast majority made by other people, but I step in it regularly. I really do. I just wish I wouldn't have said that. And I hurt somebody, or I did something, or I lost my temper, or I, made a mistake. And in those moments, I want to cry out too, Son of David, have mercy on me, please. I'm just, I just constantly keeps going the wrong way. Can you fix what I've done, And there's a desperation in those things. But health is probably also the biggest. It's, health of our children, health of our loved ones, health of our friends. And those are the things we want to cry out all the time about. We're always this is like get desperate over those things.
And we want to use this one for healing. And for me, I get that, but it's not an abracadabra. And for me, it's way more a spiritual blindness. And I mean, I haven't seen the physical blind healed. I'd like to, but I think I'd rather, like Steve said, I'd rather it be a spiritual blindness that they can see and they're not going to hell, because a lot of blind guys could be healed and still go to hell, like Steve said. And what's interesting here is Jesus stopped and said, call him here. And again, it goes to we need to go to him. We need to be desperate for him. We need to call out to him. And Jesus could have gone to him, but he said, call him here, which I thought was interesting. He's a blind man.
Yeah.
Right.
The majority
of all the people that go to Jesus, it would be the blind man.
Yeah. A lot of people. Peter's mother-in-law's brought to him, cuts a hole in the roof. There's so many, they led the blind man in that city, the city
outside
of
unbelief.
Bethsaida. They brought the blind man to him. Here, the guy waits for him. So he calls him to him. Mm-hmm. And there does seem to be something to this, two things, something to people making them come to him. And then once they come to him, it's, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want me to do for you? I want to see.
You almost be offended by that question. Almost like, do you not get clearly this is?
I'm blind.
Duh. Yeah, it's like the one guy at the pool in Bethesda where he's like, do you not even want to be healed? He's like,
no, I've been here 20 years trying to roll into this water, and they keep everyone beats me in the water.
Talk about dumb questions, huh?
But I think there is, like you said, there's something in that, just bringing your response and your request.
Yeah. I think there's a definite need to voice
Desperate
it, and there's
for
a definite need to come to him. Yeah. And I think that people should come to him for more than their blindness. Yeah. And I think that's the question. What do you want from me? I want to regain my sight. You know, it's clear that Jesus is impressed by the fact that he believes Jesus can heal my sight.
Right.
And he says that faith in that Jesus can heal my sight made him well. And I wish that everyone who had a miraculous event in their life would then follow, it says, would begin following them on the road. I wish everybody that had a miraculous event in their life would begin following them on the road. I met Jeremiah over there, when he first got here, and I see who he is today. I mean, just me saying his name, look at him smiling over there. You guys can't see it, but a miracle has occurred. Jeremiah has been lifted up in his life. He's been filled, and there's a joy in him. And it's just, we could name names all day, on who's been changed by the blood of Jesus Christ, by approaching Jesus and saying, who are you? I'm going to believe you can help me. And just that, your faith is making you well. And come to him, and your faith will make you well. I'm not promising healing of blindness. I don't know about that, but I do know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he wants to make us well. He wants to make us people who can go forward even in the storm. Like the picture of Jesus sleeping in a boat during the storm. To make us be well is to make us where we can sleep in the storms of our life. Amen. That we can trust in God when it looks like there's no way we can trust in God. And yet we can say, no, I'm just going to trust Jesus on this one. Come what may, I'm just going to trust Jesus. All things work together for good for those who love him. And if he says, I'm going to listen, and if he says get up and go, I'm going to get up and go. If he says stop, I'm going to stop. I'm going to pause and, it's funny if you just pause. Let's say you're walking out to your car and you hear the word pause and you stop. 10 seconds go by. Say, okay, you go get in your car. And you're driving down the road and up ahead, about 10 seconds, some guy goes flying through an uncontrolled intersection. And you think, well, 10 seconds, or if I'd have got there 10 seconds earlier, I'd have been there. And you don't even know why you've avoided. And there's most of the time, 99.9999% of the time, you would never see that, right? You wouldn't even know why you stopped, and you wouldn't know what you missed. But you just say, I trust the Lord that when he told me to stop, there was a reason. And I stood still, and I know why I obeyed is because I can trust him.
Like a flying deer.
Like a deer that falls from the sky on Vicky's
paused for just a second.
On the hood of Vicky's car.
I didn't pause where the deer would.
That suicide deer. She was going out to her car, and the Lord said stop, and she didn't. And a suicide deer. She met a suicide deer on the side of the road, jumping onto her hood, destroying her car.
So this might be a cultural thing. Actually, we were just talking this morning, Steve, about differences between British and American culture. But
for people that don't know, we're from America and you're from England.
Yes.
In case they didn't know.
And
that.
the question I asked was, I said, Luke, you think it's easier for an Englishman to live in America and get along and be happy, or than an American man to go to England and get along and live happily ever after?
I said that the English person will be much quieter about.
He's saying they're way more tolerant and more respectful. That's what he's really saying. Yeah. And you ugly Americans are actually brutal.
Stiff upper lip.
The point that I want to make is this: that in English culture, the story always challenges me, because in England, if I had an issue and I was trying to get attention and somebody was like, stop, be quiet. Like the proper thing to do that we were raised with, you'd stop making.
Oh, interesting.
It's proper.
What would Americans do?
The proper.
We yell louder.
We'd yell out, "Son of David!"
But just that.
That's good.
But in church culture, religious culture, there is that little bit of like, don't make a scene. Just maybe just be okay and keep going. Put your head down and
that's good.
Get over it. And I think the challenge for me in this story is always like, am I willing to put myself out there, even if everyone's saying, just get over it, just be quiet.
Yeah, be quiet. That's really good.
Get over it.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good comment regarding English and Americans.
It really is.
And cultural with that.
Even religious culture.
Yeah.
There are lots of people in churches that.
And you're talking about Israel, and you're talking about occupied. Right. You're talking about they were occupied, and there probably was Roman soldiers hanging around, and Pharisees and Sadducees, and they're the ones that can make your life miserable. That's a good point.
Lots of us in churches all over, putting on a mask that says I'm okay, I've got it together. Where at home behind closed doors, our lives are falling apart, right? And
Blind.
Yeah. I can tell you that our lives are not falling
That's good.
apart.
Yeah.
Our lives are not. We have hardship like everybody else, but we just have this faith in Jesus. And
Following him for all those years.
and our goal for our children is that they would know God, walk in the kingdom of heaven all the days of their life, and finish the race
Follow
the same
him.
way we intend to finish the race,
Mm.
loving him all the days of their life.
It's the only way.
That's our goal in life. And
He is
right
the
now
only
we're
way.
4 for 4 with our kids loving Jesus. And so we walk in joy because we can look at each other and say, well done. I can say my kids are the luckiest people on earth to have her as a mother. They really are. And they are so fortunate. And they will, a really big reason they will run the race to the finish line is because of who their mother was. And that's what we want. That's our goal in life. And here at the church is to get as many people across that finish line.
Amen.
But it's not the goal is not the end. It's how you live from the moment you know he's real.
To follow
See,
him.
before you knew he was real, before you just wondered, you're confused by religion, but then you had that experience. Now there's no going back. You got to go forward. You got to run the race. And you got to run all the way to the end. And you now have an invisible enemy, and you have a world system that's trying to make you look bad, trying to make it so you won't keep going, trying to entice you away to. And I think just blind Bartimaeus, he did exactly what everyone touched by the Lord should do.
That's good.
He began following him on the road.
It's good.
That's a key, because his life was made well. It ain't going to stay well. But if you follow him on the road, you can keep it.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us. If you're listening, you find yourself like Bartimaeus on the roadside, just in need, then we just encourage you to cry out to Jesus.
Cry out to
If
Jesus.
you have cried out to Jesus, make sure that you are now following him. And
Follow him.
You didn't just have a one-time encounter, but he's become your Lord.
That's
Son of
good.
David,
Have
don't
mercy on
pass me by.
That's right.
Have mercy on me.
Have a great week.
Amen.